Bonjour, Kinamagi and Nene Ireland, and Deshnakas, and welcome to this production of the My Math Network. Today's episode, Chapter 9, Lesson 7, Subtract Unlike Fractions. By looking at the assignment from our previous session, where we were using models, such as those found at toytheater.com/fraction strips, which is linked in the Google Classroom. We found that 7/8 minus 1/2. 1/2 would take out 4/8. That left us with 3/8 remaining. 2/3 minus 1/4. We were able to fill it in with 5/12. 1/2 minus 3/8. You ended up with an eighth pound of candy. 3/4 minus 1/3. It was 5/12 of an hour. 2/3 of a tank minus 1/6 of the tank gave us 1/6 of a tank. And 2/3 minus a half gave us 1/6 of a mile. If you have any questions about that assignment, please reach out and I'd be happy to discuss it with you. Let's look at what today is going to bring us. Today is going to bring us a lot of the same, minus the requirement for fraction tiles. Essentially, this means that we are going to need to use common denominators, which we get by using the least common multiple of our two denominators. This is not unlike what we did with addition. And let's move into that lesson. The essential question: how can equivalent fractions help me add and subtract fractions? This portion is not in the textbook, so don't worry about getting to that right now. How can you subtract two fractions with unlike denominators? Well, I think I just said it. You need to look at your two denominators. You need to find the least common multiple of those two denominators, and then find equivalent fractions with those denominators, and then you subtract, like we did earlier in this chapter. An example of this: 2/3 minus 1/4. I look and I have 3 and a 4. I can't do anything here. So what I need to do is I need to find the least common multiple of 3 and 4. First, for 3, 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 5 is 15. And I really could have stopped after 4, because 3 times 4, because there's a 4 over here. 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16. Again, I could have stopped after the third one, because we know that the answer is going to be no larger than 3 times 4, which is 12. So now I look, let's grab my annotation tool again. It's running away from me. See where I have the 12 here. So I'm going to turn this into something over 12. Now my first question is, how many times does 3 go into 12? 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So if I multiply 3 times 4 to get 12, I have to multiply 2 times 4, which is, you're right, it's 8. 4 goes into 12 1, 2, 3 times. 1 times 3 is 3. Now I can subtract. 8 minus 3 is 5. And don't you dare subtract the denominators. We keep them. And the answer in this situation would be 5/12. We have a problem here. Let me get it just right. Laura has not enough. It's not quite just right. 3/4 of a yard of ribbon. She uses 1/8 of a yard of ribbon wrapping a present. How much ribbon does Laura have left? What's the least common denominator of 4 and 8? Well, I always ask you to check. Will 4 go into 8 evenly? Yes, it will. 4 times 2 is 8. So my least common denominator is going to be 8. Notice that it has to be at least as large as my larger denominator. In this case, it works out perfectly. Now, the 1/8 that's already, we're not doing anything to it. It's going to stay the same. But the 3/4, how many times did 4 go into 8? You're right, 2. So that means I need to multiply top and bottom by 2. And this is where we get that magic 1. 3 times 2 is 6. And 4 times 2 is 8. So now I have 6/8, which is equivalent to 3/4, minus 1/8. 6 minus 1 is 5. And don't you dare subtract. We just keep that denominator, 5/8. So we get a second straight 5/8 here. What a coincidence. It really is. And that is a terrible 8, and I apologize. Let's get an eraser. It does not meet my already low standards for creating an 8. Five-eighths of a yard. So again, look at the denominators. If they are not the same, find the least common multiple of the denominators. Once I do that, I need to get equivalent fractions with that common denominator. Then I go ahead and subtract. And if I had needed to, I could have simplified, but 5/8 is already simplified. I'm going to go ahead and clear the drawing. They'll probably give you an answer here on the thing. We did good. Sam eats 1/6 of a pie on Monday and 1/4 of a pie on Tuesday. We started with 1/2 of a pie. How much pie does Sam have left? They're just trying to tease us now. It's a multiple step problem. First, we have to figure out how much he's eaten. 1/6 plus 1/4. What is the least common multiple of 4 and 6? You're right if you said 12. 6 times 2 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12. So if I multiply the 6 twice to get to 12, 1 times 2 is 2. This had to be 4 goes into 12 3 times, so I multiply that by 3. And I get 5/12. So now I can figure out how much pie is left. 1/2 minus 5/12. What will be the least common denominator? Well, 2 goes into 12, right? They're both even numbers. So let's keep it at 12. How many times does 2 go into 12? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 6 times. 6 times 1 is 6. Now I can subtract. 6 minus 5 is 1. We'd keep the denominator. 1/12 is how much pie Sam has left. Hopefully this is beginning to make a little sense to you. We're going to get into our lesson here in just a second. All right, we're going to begin in the book now. And this will be on page 651. The expectation is that you'll fill this in as we go. That way you have an artifact that you can look back on when you complete the assignment. If there's a part where you're working on a problem and you need more time, I will usually say I'm about to clear the screen And that's a good time to pause the video while you complete that step and then unpause the video. All right, here we go with example basic. A female Cuban tree frog can be up to 5/12 of a foot long. A male Cuban tree frog can be up to 1/4 foot long. How much longer is the female Cuban tree frog than the male? So our problem here is going to be 5/12 minus 1/4. Our first step here is to write equivalent like fractions using the least common denominator. The least common denominator of 12 and 4 is 12. 12 times 1 is 12. And 4 goes into 12. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. So now we know that our least common denominator is 12. Okay. So we have our 5/12, but we need to turn our 1/4 into a 12. And as I mentioned just moments ago, 4 goes into 12 3 times. So I'm going to multiply the numerator and denominator of 1/4 by 3. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. That gives me a 5/12 minus 3/12. And I can subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. We keep the denominator of 12. And we have an answer. Or do we? Not quite yet. We can simplify. And I know I can simplify because I have a numerator and a denominator. They're both even numbers, which automatically tells me that I can divide both of them by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 12 divided by 2 is 6. A female Cuban tree frog is 1/6 of a foot longer than the male. And since 1/6 is less than a half, my answer is reasonable. Go ahead and fill those in. Make sure those are filled in if you haven't already. Give you just a moment to do that, and then we'll be on the top of the next page for example niche. Give you just a few more seconds on that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear the drawing. The answer. Example niche. We have a table here. Portion of homework completed. Jesse 1/2. Lashani 4/5. And our problem says Jesse finished half of her homework. Lakshani finished 4/5 of her homework. How much more homework did Lakshani finish than Jesse? And usually when I see how much more, that's always an indicator of subtraction. Just a hint there. First we can estimate. And in all honesty, you're not going to estimate every time you do the problem. A lot of this will be a step in your head. But since it's here, let's check it out. 4/5 is closer to 1. And I mean, this is literally 1/2. So my 1 minus 1/2 is 1/2. So our answer should, in fact, end up being close to a half. So make sure you've written that in on that first step. And then we're going to go ahead here and subtract 4/5 minus 1/2. All right, so I'm going to clear the drawing. You see our whole process there. So we know that 4/5 minus 1/2, 5 and 2 are not the same. So we do not yet have like fractions. So I'm going to need to find a common denominator using the least common multiple of 5 and 2. 5. And in this case, I know that I need something that 2 goes into that ends in a 0 or 5. Well, obviously 5 is ruled out because 2 will never go into 5 due to the fact that one's even, one's odd. So 5 times 2 is 10, and that's where we'll begin. So first, I'm going to turn the 4/5 into something over 10. And 5 goes into 10 twice. So 4 times 2 is 8. So this part goes right here. 1/2, we're going to have to go 2 times 5 is 10. And then for 1 times 5 is 5. So that part's right here. We had to make sure that both of them were 10s because the least common multiple of 5 and 2 is 10. And just remember the least common multiples, we just kind of skip count. 5, 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And that's the first one, it's in both. All right, now that I have 8 tenths minus 5 tenths, 8 minus 5 is 3. We keep the 10. 3 is a prime number, and it doesn't go into 10, so we have a simplified fraction, and it's 3 tenths. And 3 tenths is closer to 1/2 than it is to 0, so it is reasonable. So go ahead and write this in, and I'll give you a moment to do that. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. I want you guys to go ahead and do the guided practice. But when you do this, I'm going to ask you to pause the video, solve it, and then unpause the video to see how you did. You may pause the video now. Welcome back. Let's do this one together. I need the least common multiple of 4 and 8. And I already know what this is going to go, but 4 times 1, 4 times 2. And notice we already have an 8, so we're going to go with 8s. Well, I already have the 3 8s right here. Now I need, how many times will 4 go into 8? Twice. So 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 8s minus 2 8s. 1/8. How did that work out for you? Hopefully it went well. Clear the drawings. What steps can I use to find 3/4 minus 1/12? Well, step 1 is I'm going to find the least common multiple, which in this case is 12. And since 4 went into 12 3 times, I'll multiply the numerator and denominator by 3. So I get 9/12 minus 1/12, which is 8/12. And then I'll simplify and get 2/3. All right, let's do 3 more practice problems. Pause the video, answer them, and then unpause the video, and you're ready. Let me pause the video now. Welcome back. Let's see how we did. 5 6 minus 3 6 is 2 6, which comes down to 1/3. 2/5 minus 1/4 is 3/20. 4/5 minus 1/6 is 19/30. At this point, I'm going to dismiss you into the homework. Make sure that you are finding the simplest form first, or finding the common denominator, and make sure you complete it with the simplest form. Your answers will be in the chart on that one and on that one. This wraps up this lesson. If you have any questions, please reach out to me via email or be ready to discuss this in class. Have a Minogishigad, Minwa, Pamapi.